Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now, for your host, Matt Haney.
Thank you for joining us on the Scalability Code. We're joined today with Duke Revard. Duke, thanks for joining us. Nice to have you, sir.
Yeah, great to be here, Matt. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So we always start off, nobody here knows who you are, and they probably don't know who I am. So let's tell each other, or you tell me about you, and I will tell you about me, and we'll get to know each other a little bit. Then we'll jump into some of the things that we get to do every day helping our clients. So give me a little backstory. Where'd you come from? Where'd you live? How'd you end up here? And how'd you get in the crazy world of EOS?
Yeah, so grew up in Bentonville, Arkansas, kind of, the shadow Walmart around that whole community and all that goes on there. And college at Mizzou. Since college, 4 ventures. And probably where I discovered EOS was in 2013. It was part of a commercial insurance startup, and read the book and started to implement it in that company. And then at the same time, we were building a lot of HubSpot funnels and inbound stuff. And friends of mine and other founders were saying, hey, will you help me with my marketing? And so really what I started to discover, to get with these teams, and they didn't have enough internal clarity about who they were, who their customer was, a whole lot of things, that I started handing them the Vision Traction Organizer and saying, hey, you guys need to get internal clarity or I'm going to waste your marketing dollars talking to the wrong people the wrong way. Started using the tools back then, been using them ever since. And at some point I looked up and realized, really love leadership development, really love, in a weird way, conflict resolution, love helping companies scale, companies get out of the ditch, companies grow, and love the variety of EOS. So I have clients in tons of different industries. I like the variety of it. I like the change. I like the new problems, new learnings, and yet the continuity of having a proven, process, proven system. So really love my job, love the people I get to meet with, and love entrepreneurs, love folks who just get out and build and scale and solve problems in the market. So
that's so fun. And so you've been a full-time implementer for how long, do you think?
So I've been a full-time implementer for 2 years, been implementing the tools for, I don't even know, 12 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, you guys were really early 10 years ago. I mean, the scene hadn't quite become the scene yet with EOS that far back. And people's, were you working with an implementer, or were you self-implementing off the book?
I was self-implementing back then. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I still come across quite a few companies that are like, nope, never worked with an implementer, read the book, listened to the podcast, did the stuff. So it's awesome to see there's still that group of people back there. What types of industries have you seen? This is always my favorite question, because it's like you never really know what this other person is going to say. So think back for a second at some of the clients you've worked with, and maybe some that are similar and some that are completely different, and maybe even any that are obscure.
Yeah, so I have several clients, or I've had several clients in construction broadly. So residential road pavers, commercial construction, to fully custom home builders, on your lot home builders, portable barn builders, or kind of portable buildings, call them barn doors.
Yeah, sure. Very popular.
Manufactured homes in a way, like 1,500 homes or portable buildings a year.
Wow.
Software as a service companies with distributed teams, multiple countries. Those are, different for sure in terms of
what platform, what product were they doing, or was it in the software space?
It's actually a HIPAA compliance. So they're cool. They're helping companies stay, compliant and doing all the education, kind of LMS delivery for large hospital groups or folks that have to.
Man, you have that session one day, then the next session you're talking to the barn-dough builder about building 1,500 barn-doughs a year. This is what I love about the platform. It's so diverse. There's so much opportunity to see so many different people and different walks. What else? Maybe some nonprofits in there somewhere?
I've worked with a large charitable, really foundation that does DAF, donor advised funds. So liquidity events when people are selling their company, they're helping them structure to be able to give away as much as possible to the causes they care about. And another leadership development company in the kind of Christian leadership formation space called the Eden Project that also helped co-found. And so, it's diverse, but what's cool, as much diversity as we talked about, you see a lot of the common problems. You see a lot of the issues actually show up in all those diverse fields, and that there's actually cross-pollination or learnings that I see that are relevant and consistent across any business that's trying to organize human energy, trying to accomplish a vision, trying to hold people accountable, trying to drive results. So
I get the converse. People are like, well, my business is different. And I always say to them, you may have a different widget, but your business is very similar. And I can promise you that the problems you're dealing with or organizational development problems that every business owner, every visionary entrepreneur has gone through, that's what, plugging into a system that has a consistent framework will give you the opportunity to, just maintain consistency and commitment.
absolutely. No, it's so true.
So let's talk about challenges you face in the session room. This is always interesting. I mean, I've had the privilege of sitting in session with, I don't know, probably 10 different implementers in some capacity, and everyone runs their sessions differently. And, it's coming that time of the quarter for us where you're ending up getting scheduled for the next quarter. Tell me if you could think back through your last in session, session or virtual distributed or whatever, and draw on a scenario or a story or something that comes back that this company was dealing with. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are and sort of if you can recall a specific scenario.
Yeah, one of the most memorable recent sessions was around core focus, really helping a company realize, this is a commercial insurance company, that the thing that they hated doing was actually the least profitable part of the business. It was the most competitive part of the business. And I'm not going to get super technical because I don't want to air out anybody's laundry, but they were fighting with a huge red ocean of tons of competitors for low premium, things they don't really even enjoy. And through the core focus exercise, discovered that the hardest thing they do is actually very, there's not many competitors because it's technical and it's hard, and they actually love doing it. And so the process of discovering that and beginning to really zero in all their biz dev efforts, all their energy towards the 10X opportunity that they love, it was just fun to watch them gain energy and honestly even come back the next quarter and realize they had blown through revenue targets because it was a 10X opportunity. And when they started focusing all of their efforts on that from a biz dev standpoint, it was just returning quickly on it, and they were having more fun. And so it was just one of those kind of aha moments for the team where you just see that sometimes there really is some kind of like magic in that. You mean we could grow faster and enjoy it more? Like, how does that work? And it was really that moment. So
I love having those moments. I call them unlocks, where you have some unlock and you're like, I didn't even know that was coming. Or, what's always funny? I always find them to be like at the end of the day. It's like everyone's exhausted. Someone's been sitting on this thing for the whole time. And then they're like, oh, wait, I've got one more issue. And it's like, boom, it unlocks the session. You're like, wow, we've been waiting for that. It's like, if only you would have said it 2 hours ago, we could have gotten so much further. So I always try to get people, I'm like, hey, as much prep as we can do and say, hey, get ready. Like if there's anything awkward, and generally I know these things because, I'm having one-on-ones with the visionary, then I'm having one-on-ones individually with the leadership team members. I'm like the local therapist. They're going to tell me something that they probably wouldn't tell a visionary, or maybe they feel more comfortable or less intimidated, or, who knows, whatever. So I always say, hey, you need to add this to the list so that when this comes up in the quarterly, I don't have to bring it up. Like it needs to be your thought. So make sure that you're getting it out and getting it there.
it's huge.
It is huge. Talk to me about accountability. Like what are some of the accountability challenges you've seen, and sort of how does it work? How do you coach to that?
Yeah. So one thing I think as an implementer, everything that we do in the session room, I just have to assume happens outside the session room. And so as implementers, we'll get really, really strict on the purity of running a really great meeting and running a really great day. So you start to see people on cell phones. You start to address it immediately because we just say, hey, if everybody in every meeting extrapolated out every week from now on was half distracted on the cell phone, what's that costing the company in terms of productivity, in terms of bringing our very best ideas to the meeting, our very best contribution? And so it's sometimes just important to tell them, hey, I'm a coach. I'm just going to assume if you're breaking anything fundamental, anything that's not helping you build a better company, any habit that honestly, if everybody else followed would be worse for your company, not better, I'm going to call it out. And not because I'm a tweaker, not because I enjoy
confrontation or
Yeah, but this is the advantage I have in your business. And so let's form as best and as pure habits as we possibly can when we're together. And then consider if it wouldn't be better if that was always the case in every meeting from now on. And if it would be, why don't you install it? But now with the credibility as a leader saying, hey, I'm doing that too. I put my cell phone on airplane mode, or I do whatever I got to do to really be fully present here. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. So yeah, it's just there's discipline all the way down and just paying attention to individual leaders, and then even the culture of the team, and addressing the things that you think are not helping them build a better company. And then of course you have the tools themselves. So it's not uncommon for a client to really not understand the power of, let's say, a really good scorecard, not really understand the difference between sometimes tracking metrics and tracking them every week in an L10 and dropping down and finding out why something's off track. But what's fun for me, Matt, is it usually only takes about 6 to 8 weeks for them to absolutely get it and to be completely convinced. And then even some of the most resistant parties end up being the biggest spokesman for EOS or for a scorecard, because they start to see the difference when you measure it, you come back, you find out why something's off track, and you're actually solving it, getting someone on track, coaching them up, supporting them, finding out there's not enough training or there's not enough support, or they're being pulled in too many directions. So they don't have time to work on a lead measure.
I always tell people it's rare is it somebody that's just not operating and not executing and just being sort of, belligerent's the term that comes to mind. They're not being, but they're just, rarely are people just they're not just like being stubborn. They're not being just difficult, combative. It's just like, hey, I don't know how, and I don't know how to say that. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I don't know how to say that. I think I'm doing it, and I don't know how to ask you what success looks like, or most people. So it's interesting you say that, because I rarely do I feel like someone's just trying to be a pain in the neck and not do it. So one of the things we did in the last session I was with the local implementers, we, during the tools section of a quarterly, we dug further into LMA. And man, when LMA came up in this particular team, I thought, oh man, that's probably not the tool that I would have picked. But it turned into an incredible discussion. And I think and I keep thinking quarterlies because they're on my mind, but using that toolbox and really expanding on one of those and having conversations with the team about what we're going to dig into on the toolbox and ahead of the quarterly just gives people, in my experience, a much better time to prepare and be in tune and aware. So, and then LMA, lead manage accountable, like keeping people accountable to it. And I also feel like it bubbles up that stuff to the surface and opens the conversation.
Absolutely. Is that people are not familiar with LMA. The Great Boss book is in the EOS library. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Like a lot of things in EOS, it's super simple, that someone might look at it and just say it's too simple to be helpful. But then when you actually run a team through the 5 leadership abilities and the 5 management abilities, even leaders that I deeply respect, and leaders that have MBAs, and leaders who have gone to Townsend Leadership Institute and have gone and done all this stuff and are readers and are super conversant with their industry and whatever, you really, when they go down and score themselves on the 5 leadership abilities or the 5 management abilities, they're like, 60%, I'm not doing this stuff. I'm not, and it's like part of like good parenting or something. It's like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just not consistently doing the thing that I know. And when there's a little bit of accountability, even around that, as simple as it is, you see, so much more accountability driven by leaders who just consistently follow through on providing the support and the leadership that their direct reports need, and the management and accountability that their direct reports need, and then all, kind of all boats rise. So huge fan of that book. And what's interesting, Matt, is I'll sometimes poll the audience and just ask, particularly if I have a younger team, if I have some folks in their 20s and 30s on the team, I'll just say, have you ever had any leadership training? No. Have you ever had any management training? No.
So hang on, I want to jump in. Where do you go with that? I mean, someone looks you in the eyes in their leadership position, they're like, I've never led anybody. You're like,
Yeah, they're generally pretty honest. So typically what happens is they've been promoted to leadership. They've been promoted to management. Nobody came behind that and actually gave them even a basic framework. So they're just kind of winging it based on like...
I always say promoted by tenure.
Yeah, or wartime, or somebody quit, or whatever, or they're good at their job and they've earned a lot of trust for leadership, so they've gotten moved up, and yet they just don't have really what they have is a composite of hopefully their best couple of bosses they've ever had, and whatever their best bosses did as best they can remember
Right.
on some interval, they kind of try to shoehorn that for a while.
Yep.
Maybe they are reading a little bit. They're trying to think through it. But when you can hand them something very simple like LMA or the Great Boss Book, and they could just have a very simple but comprehensive framework, all of a sudden they immediately level up just by having clarity about what is my job as a leader if I have somebody looking to me for that. What is my job as a manager if somebody's counting on me for that? And they instantly level up, and it's kind of aim small, miss small. Now that I know what I'm trying to do, I'm so much more likely to actually do it.
Now that I know what accountability looks like, most times, like I said earlier, people will do that because they want to do that. They want to be successful. They want to do what's best. They don't just choose to be, absent.
Absolutely.
What else can we talk about? Tell me about what you do outside of work. What are some of the fun things you get to do when you're not chasing teams around quarterly sessions and planning 90 days out?
Yeah. I do a lot. My girls, I've got 19, 17, 15-year-old girls. So
Wow.
We're still in a little bit of sports. We're wrapping up the last couple of years of high school. So volleyball, we've done a lot of club volleyball. Before that, it was soccer and, all the sports. So a lot of my energy was just spent in sporting events with my daughters and enjoying that. Love to hike. I've lived in some cool places. My wife and I lived in Portland, Oregon. We lived in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Still even around Texas, like to get out and hike where we can. Grew up in Arkansas. There's a lot to do there as well. But, probably the thing I enjoy doing, we have a family ranch out near, Hamilton, Hico area.
Oh, nice. I know exactly where it is.
I love to cook on cast iron outside.
That's great.
Go just cooking out over the fire, and it's fun on a Saturday morning to get up way before everybody, and just get something ready and cook it's kind of like a 3-hour process, to do it.
What's your go-to? You cooking over open coals in the fire, or you? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll make the fire, get them to where the coals are ready for cast iron. I have a really big, I don't even know if it's 17 or 19 inch, cast iron.
What brand? Is it a Lodge?
It is a Lodge.
I have a Lodge. It's literally, I could go get it off my stove and bring it in here. It's my favorite thing to cook on. It will be around for generations. And I've had several other skillets, but I find the Lodge, it's just great. It's great.
It is. Yeah. No, it's excellent. So, yeah, I love to do that. Get, thick bacon, HEB bacon or something, and sausage, spicy sausage. And then you get, plenty of fat. And then you start going with Yukon Gold potatoes and there's a whole.
Is it like a scramble you're almost making?
It's usually like some kind of, Texas is some form of like something you can put in a tortilla as many as you want, so it's we
eat tacos all the time. And it's so funny. I've lived in Texas my whole life. I moved away for 4 years and then came back. But one of my favorite things to do is when people come visit is show them all the different ways you can eat a taco and the different things you can put in it. And my new obsession is the griddle. I don't know if you have a griddle. Do you have a griddle plate for the fire?
I do. I do.
So I got a new range and I have the griddle built into it. And I was back and forth. Do I really want the griddle? I don't know. But the reality is I love the griddle. And now I'm obsessed. And then, you use that, your Lodge, some ready to go coals. And I don't know how you regulate the temperature. It's got to get really hot.
Yeah, it does. So I have a pretty large fire pit, and then you can move the track. It's like a movable track that's just sitting over, just like wireframe. Yeah. And then, of course, you can move the
fire underneath it.
Around. Yeah. I've got a lot of things. And then I've got a little infrared thermometer.
Nice.
So you can get a pretty good idea of where you are on that.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about Sinclair Ventures and what we do. And I'd love for you to ask any questions and tell you sort of, because you're not familiar with me and I'm familiar with EOS implementers because I work with a lot of them. But I do like to use this time to talk a little bit about what being a fractional integrator is. And, majority of our companies or clients have never had a second in command. They've never had a COO. They may get to the point where they're realizing they need someone else. Generally, there's something that happens with the integrator or the visionary. The visionary says, I've done this to a certain point. I don't know what next steps are. And that comes up in a quarterly in some way. And an implementer will call us and say, hey, I've got this client I've been working with, and they're not quite ready for a full-time, but they think they are, or there's some metric that's turned red or green. Green allows for freeing up of cash flow sometimes, and red is like we're just not moving things forward. So in EOS, I would say to, hey, interview us or all the different fractionals out there that you could find, and bring someone in to help with those days, the 89 days, as I say, the 89 days in between the quarterly, where you need someone to help drive accountability and execute rocks.
Yep.
That allows us to have a lot of time. We come in on a weekly basis, facilitate the weekly L10, have one-on-one leadership team meetings with generally each of the leadership team members. Sometimes we'll go out a little further and work with one team down if it's a bigger organization, so that we can just instill best practices for EOS on a weekly basis.
Huge. No, it's so, and this is, you probably heard this from other implementers, Matt, but I'm always trying to find my inside man or woman inside the org who's going to help run EOS Pure.
Yep.
And it's usually the integrator. I mean,
Yep.
spoiler alert. But when a company does not have that, having a fractional who stands in is a huge win for the implementer, because the last thing we want is somebody doing a very, very half-baked, half-implemented EOS and then walking away saying EOS doesn't work. It worked for us. We tried it, and you realize, like, man, this was like a 30% EOS.
Right.
So somebody who gets the system, who can run the system, and honestly, from the inside, purely execute on the tools, even teach, and I'm sure you do in small ways and big ways, teach things that were not clear, or that they forgot, and they heard, but they forgot, and they need the repetition and the reinforcement of it. And then the team, of course, just starts to get the traction, starts getting momentum. Whether it's a full-time implementer or integrator rather, or a fractional, that role is so critical for the actual pure implementation of EOS. And if you don't have that,
it's also just having a different person in the room facilitate using. That's what's so great about working with an EOSI and implementer. And I always say to folks, is like, I'm not good at the whiteboard. I want the implementer to be at the whiteboard helping drive through the vision, and I like being a participant of it. I don't lead quarterlies. That I leave that to the folks that are best at it. But when you're in the room facilitating a quarterly, it's so different than when you're working with a client who's self-implemented, simply just because you have reps, you have experience, you've done this, you've seen it, you know when to bring us back in, you know what tool to talk about. I equate that to how we run our L10s on a weekly basis, is that we've just done it so many times. You're going to get a different experience that's going to impact you. And as a fractional, my job is to work myself out of work. That's my job, is to replace myself or promote from within and train someone to sit in the integrator seat. So having a person from the outside, me or you in this case, helping facilitate makes a big difference. And then what you'll see is those people that have, promise or the prospect of being the integrator, they watch and model how we implement, and instantly they level up. Because they didn't have access to someone until we came in that gave them that aha moment that they said, I can do this. I can absolutely do this. So it's a really special thing to build these teams and work with them. Another thing about being a fractional that's really impactful is that my job and my relationship with the visionary is different than anyone else's, because I'm hired on a month-to-month basis with no contract. If I deliver, I get paid the next month. If I don't deliver, I don't get paid. Very clearly set up front with the visionary, is that I'm not here to tie someone into some big long-term contract. I'm here to deliver. And if I'm not delivering for you, then I don't need to work for you. We're not the right fit. So given that dynamic, I get to have a very unique perspective with the visionary. Think about it. I'm the only person in the room that he can fire and has been told from very beginning, I'm not going to be here forever. So I don't have to sell him on why I'm going to be there and how I'm doing my job. We just let the data and the delivery of rocks, speak for that.
I love it. I heard a guy say recently he has multiple companies running on EOS and has grown quite a bit as a result, and is now out there selling EOS all the time to other business owners. But he said, it's really a blue collar MBA. And I think the combination that you're describing of a professional implementer plus even either an internal integrator who's trained or a fractional integrator that partners, I love the idea of you and I as like the boosters on the space shuttle, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to get you totally up and where you want to go. And then we're going to fall away and you're going to be fine. You're going to motor around. You're going to get where you want to go. But it's such a cheat code in a way to go, hey, this isn't a bunch of books. This isn't going away to school for 2 years. We're going to get right in the business right now. You're going to start to see some gains in 4 to 6 to 8 weeks that are immediate, that you can feel. And we're going to build until the flywheel's just spinning and all your internal people teach as well as I can.
And then, boop.
And they're going to take it. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly right. And just that discipline, that change in pace or the catalyst moment is great for people. One thing before we hop off, tell me about operating. What softwares are you seeing with your clients that are using EOS, and sort of what's your, your own special favorite? Some people like Ford, some like Chevrolet. Where do you go to?
Yeah. I definitely give my clients the choice, but I explain the value of them using 90. So 90.io. And as an implementer, I can see I can click through all of my clients in a single user interface. I get an email every day. I've gotten 3 or 4 today of L10s that wrap. I see how many issues they work through. I see who was there. I see the rating. It's always fun. Once, it takes some time to really nail an L10, sure. But once you see the first 10 all the way across the board, I text my team a Mary Lou Retton meme, sticking the perfect 10, and it's just it's an exciting moment to realize they're we just ran a really great meeting. We all agree, we just nailed that. So it's just fun for me to be able to have. You mentioned that 8 to 9 weeks in between quarterlies, for me to have a pulse on that. If I see a 4 across the board, if I see some train wreck signs, I'm probably calling the visionary or the integrator that week.
Yes. What is going on?
What went on with the L10?
Right.
How you doing? Especially early in the journey when you can intervene quickly. And often it's an important moment to especially the integrator's really perfectionistic and they're really trying to thread the needle and they want to do a great job. And it's kind of hits their confidence a little bit because they're leading the meeting. It's not like it went off the rails or whatever. Just to kind of quickly find out, IDS that, let's figure out what went on. What do you need help on, support on, coaching in the moment. So that kind of stuff is helpful. So anyway, for that reason, I just like 90 as a single source of clarity for me, transparency for me. Certainly, I've got clients who run it for a while. The other thing is that, the L10 meeting is on bumper bowling. You start the clock, you start the meeting, and it's giving you a shot clock, and it's showing the outline so you don't skip something. And eventually I've seen them migrate to Monday or migrate to some other tool that they're using and build it out in there, which I'm like, that's great. I want to know that you've gotten 8, 10, 12, 15 really pure reps, and then take out the training wheels and run and make it your own.
Man, I've got clients that have used it for 3, 4, 5 years, still love it. But I'm a huge 90.io advocate as well. And there's some selfish reasons, but because I can run, like you said, run down through everybody and see it that way. But also one of the things I really like that I would encourage you to see if you're not using it is look at the analytics and go look at percentage of to-dos and on time versus, and really use that as a conversation starter during the quarterly that says, and then it's always this, oh, well, this, or oh, well, that, or whatever. It's no, let's challenge ourselves to set a rock for the company to have it be, this percentage this year, this quarter, this whatever. And I think that also is something that it goes back to LMA, something that really helps them stay accountable too.
No, absolutely. There's no doubt. So yeah, it's a great tool. The mobile app just came out, which
I haven't dug in yet. I'm excited for it. And even if it's terrible, it's going to get better. 90 does such a great job of continuing to reinvest and create. So, well, Duke, it's been wonderful having you here. Love to get to know you and look forward to hopefully seeing you in the session room or seeing you down the road. And just wanted to say thanks for joining us here on the Scalability Code, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Matt. It was fun.
You got it, man. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of this show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.